The instinct to instantly lower your voice and step aside when someone walks toward you in a tight corridor is not a sign of politeness. It is a neurological surrender that maps your precise placement in the social hierarchy before a single word is spoken. When you alter your physical trajectory or vocal amplitude to accommodate another person's momentum, your nervous system executes a primitive evasion program. This reaction satisfies their unspoken claim to the physical territory. In high-stakes environments, this micro-concession signals an innate willingness to yield resources, authority, and leverage. This happens long before formal negotiations even begin. Human interaction is governed by a hidden network of spatial politics. In this system, every square inch of shared floor space represents a silent calculation of dominance and submission. Most people mistake spatial yielding for basic manners because societal conditioning rewards compliance with the illusion of moral superiority. This conditioning actively blinds you to the behavioral reality of what is occurring. When two individuals approach each other in a confined space, a rapid-fire cognitive assessment occurs within milliseconds. Your brain calculates the other person's mass, velocity, gaze direction, and facial tension. If your immediate response is to shrink your shoulders, alter your stride, or avert your gaze, you are broadcasting a clear signal. You are telling the other person's subconscious that your time, destination, and presence are less valuable than theirs. This subconscious data gathering is immediately cataloged by the other person. They will then use it to calibrate their tone, demands, and expectations in future interactions. This phenomenon is rooted in a behavioral concept known as spatial anchoring. Spatial anchoring dictates that the individual who forces others to navigate around them possesses the highest functional status in that environment. Consider the layout of executive offices or premium real estate. The architecture is deliberately designed to force visitors to traverse large, open, unprotected spaces while the occupant remains static and anchored. When you replicate this dynamic in daily encounters by constantly weaving through crowds, stepping off sidewalks, or hugging the walls of office hallways, you train your brain to accept a subordinate status. You are systematically dismantling your internal sense of authority. You are replacing it with a habitual readiness to retreat. To understand the full depth of this psychological vulnerability, we must look at how it intersects with the concept of somatic compliance. Somatic compliance occurs when your physical body automatically aligns itself with the unspoken demands of an authority figure or an aggressive peer. This is not a conscious choice. It is a deeply ingrained physiological reflex driven by the amygdala. The amygdala prioritizes conflict avoidance over long-term status preservation. When a dominant individual enters your personal space, your nervous system registers a subtle threat anomaly. If you lack the psychological training to override this signal, your body will automatically minimize its physical profile. You will compress your chest, cross your arms, or take a step backward to de-escalate the perceived threat. The consequences of this automatic physical retreat extend far beyond simple body language. When you physically yield space, a corresponding shift occurs within your neurochemistry. Studies in behavioral endocrinology demonstrate that maintaining an expansive, anchored posture for as little as 2 minutes can significantly alter your hormonal profile. It increases testosterone levels while lowering cortisol, the primary stress hormone. Conversely, when you adopt a compressed, yielding posture, even for a moment, your cortisol levels spike and your testosterone plummets. This hormonal shift immediately impairs your cognitive functioning. It reduces your working memory capacity and severely limits your ability to think clearly under pressure. By stepping aside in that corridor, you are not just letting someone pass. You are actively altering your brain chemistry to become more compliant, more easily intimidated, and less capable of asserting your boundaries. This biological vulnerability makes you an ideal target for predatory individuals who utilize deliberate spatial intrusion as a manipulation tactic. Proximity manipulation is a favorite tool of toxic managers, aggressive negotiators, and social dominators. They will intentionally invade your personal workspace, lean over your desk, or stand uncomfortably close during a conversation. They do this to trigger your automatic somatic compliance reflex. If you react by flinching, leaning back, or stepping away, you have successfully handed them complete psychological control over the interaction. The mechanism behind this manipulation relies heavily on an obscure biological principle known as the behavioral sink. Originally discovered in ecological studies of crowded animal populations, the behavioral sink describes the complete collapse of normal social structures and self-preservation instincts when territorial boundaries are repeatedly violated. In human environments, a micro-version of this phenomenon occurs when an individual constantly allows their physical and psychological boundaries to be eroded by others. Each time you step aside without cause, each time you lower your voice to match someone else's aggressive tone, you are contributing to your own internal behavioral sink. You are conditioning your mind to accept the systematic erasure of your autonomy. This internal erosion eventually manifests as a condition known as perspective-taking entrapment. This is a cognitive distortion where you become so hyper-focused on maintaining the comfort and emotional stability of those around you that you completely lose the ability to identify and advocate for your own needs. You begin to view every environment through the lens of how to minimize your impact on others. You try to avoid taking up space, causing inconvenience, or triggering conflict. You become a ghost in your own life, moving silently through the margins of your workspace and social circles, while more assertive individuals claim the rewards, recognition, and authority that your silent concessions have left behind. To reverse this psychological decay, you must master the art of tactical immobility. Tactical immobility is the deliberate, conscious refusal to alter your physical presence, posture, or trajectory in response to unspoken social pressure. It is the practice of becoming an unyielding pillar in an environment of constant movement and shifting compliance demands. When you are walking down a tight corridor and an approaching individual attempts to force a spatial concession, you do not shift your path. You do not shrink your shoulders. You do not drop your gaze to the floor. Instead, you lock your eyes on a point directly behind them, maintain your structural alignment, and continue forward with consistent, unhurried momentum. This simple adjustment completely disrupts the other person's subconscious dominance program. Because your gaze is fixed past them, their brain registers that you are completely unaware of or completely indifferent to their attempts to claim the space. This forces their nervous system to make a rapid, manual adjustment. They are the ones who must now calculate a new path, shift their shoulders, and veer off course to avoid a physical collision. In that single moment, the silent hierarchy of the corridor is instantly inverted. You have demonstrated a superior level of psychological anchoring, and they have been forced to execute the somatic compliance reflex that they intended to inflict upon you. This spatial victory immediately triggers a reverse neurochemical cascade within your own body. Your brain interprets your refusal to yield as a successful defense of territory. This causes an immediate surge of dopamine and testosterone through your system. This hormonal boost sharpens your focus, enhances your situational awareness, and instills a profound sense of calm control. You are no longer navigating the environment from a position of defensive reactivity. You are actively shaping the environment through the sheer weight of your physical and psychological presence. Once you have established tactical immobility in your physical movements, you must apply the exact same principle to your vocal delivery. This is done by eliminating a vocal pattern known as the submissive cadence. The submissive cadence is the instinctive habit of lowering your volume, speeding up your delivery, or raising your pitch at the end of a sentence when you are interrupted or challenged. It is a verbal white flag that signals to the listener that you do not believe your own words carry enough inherent value to command the room. When someone attempts to speak over you or cut you off in a meeting, the submissive cadence compels you to quickly finish your thought in a rushed, quiet tone before yielding the floor. To counter this, you must deploy vocal anchoring. Vocal anchoring requires you to do the exact opposite of what your primitive survival instincts dictate. When an interruption occurs, you do not raise your pitch to compete, nor do you lower your volume to submit. Instead, you drop your voice into its lowest natural register, slightly increase your volume, and significantly slow down your rate of speech. You continue speaking your original sentence with absolute deliberation, ignoring the interrupter's vocal input entirely. This creates an intense psychological friction for the person trying to interrupt you. Their brain is forced to process two conflicting streams of information simultaneously: their own hurried attempt to seize control and your slow, unshakable, low-frequency vocal output. In nearly every instance, the interrupter's momentum will collapse within 3 to 5 seconds. Their nervous system cannot sustain the cognitive load required to speak over someone who refuses to acknowledge their existence or match their frantic energy. They will naturally trail off, lower their gaze, or wait for you to finish. They are left feeling exposed and socially awkward. By refusing to alter your vocal trajectory, you have transformed their aggressive attempt to assert dominance into a public demonstration of their own lack of impulse control and social intelligence. This level of behavioral mastery requires you to completely reframe your relationship with social discomfort. Most people are deeply terrified of the brief, intense moments of tension that occur when you refuse to comply with unspoken social demands. They will gladly trade their long-term status, leverage, and self-respect just to escape a few seconds of awkward silence or direct eye contact. This is a catastrophic trade. It ensures that you will remain permanently trapped at the bottom of whatever hierarchy you occupy. Social discomfort is not an analytical indicator of danger. It is simply the friction that occurs when two conflicting psychological programs collide. The individual who is most willing to sit comfortably within that friction will always dictate the outcome of the interaction. This brings us to a critical concept in dark psychology known as the compliance threshold. The compliance threshold is the exact point in an interaction where an individual decides it is easier to submit to a demand than to continue resisting. Every person has a different threshold, largely determined by their historical conditioning and their current neurochemical state. Manipulative individuals are experts at locating and exploiting your compliance threshold. They will deliberately push an interaction into a zone of high tension. They might use aggressive posture, prolonged silences, or sharp commands. They do this because they know that if they can hold you in that uncomfortable space for just a few moments, your baseline instinct will compel you to break. You will offer a concession, step aside, or apologize just to relieve the pressure. When you master tactical immobility and vocal anchoring, you are effectively raising your compliance threshold to an infinite height. You are transforming yourself into a psychological black hole from which no submissive signals can escape. When an aggressive peer attempts to intimidate you by staring you down or invading your personal space, you do not give them the satisfaction of a defensive reaction. You do not smile nervously. You do not shift your weight. You do not look away. You simply absorb their pressure with absolute stillness. This stillness sends a terrifying counter-signal to their subconscious. It suggests that you possess a hidden reserve of power, leverage, or information that renders their aggressive tactics completely irrelevant. This psychological counterattack triggers a phenomenon known as dominance inversion. Dominance inversion occurs when the individual who initiated an aggressive maneuver suddenly realizes that their tactics are failing to produce the expected submissive response. This failure creates an immediate crisis of confidence within their own mind. Their amygdala, which was previously primed for an easy victory, suddenly panics. It registers your stillness as an indicator of an existential threat. Their heart rate accelerates, their breathing becomes shallow, and they will instinctively begin to execute the very same submissive behaviors they were attempting to force upon you. They will step back, break eye contact, or offer a rushed, conciliatory remark to de-escalate the tension they created. To fully integrate these principles into your daily life, you must understand the concept of tactical non-responsiveness. Tactical non-responsiveness is the deliberate withholding of predictable emotional and physical validation during social interactions. The vast majority of people are deeply addicted to external validation. They constantly scan their environment for smiles, nods, verbal agreements, and submissive gestures from those around them to confirm that they are safe and accepted. When you consciously deny them this validation, you create a profound psychological vacuum. Imagine a scenario where an aggressive colleague makes a passive-aggressive comment or attempts a veiled insult during a team meeting. The standard low-status response is to either laugh nervously to diffuse the tension, or fire back with an equally defensive or angry retort. Both of these responses are highly submissive because they validate the insult. They prove that the other person's words have successfully altered your emotional and behavioral state. They have pulled you into their orbit and forced you to react on their terms. If you deploy tactical non-responsiveness, your reaction to the insult is absolute nothingness. You do not frown. You do not glare. You do not respond with a witty comeback. You simply stop talking, turn your head slowly to look them directly in the eyes, and maintain a completely flat, expressionless face for 3 full seconds of dead silence. You let their words hang in the air, exposed and unvalidated, for everyone in the room to hear. After the pause, you calmly turn your gaze back to the rest of the group and resume your original thought. You continue exactly where you left off, as if the interrupter had never spoken. This non-reaction is infinitely more destructive to the manipulator's status than any insult or angry outburst could ever be. By refusing to react, you have sent a devastating message to their subconscious and to everyone else in the room. You have demonstrated that their input is so entirely insignificant, so utterly devoid of weight or consequence, that it is incapable of eliciting even a micro-moment of emotional or physical feedback from you. You have effectively neutralized their presence, rendering them completely invisible and powerless within the social ecosystem of the room. This strategy is built upon the foundation of high-status indifference. High-status indifference is the ultimate psychological shield because it makes you entirely immune to the emotional baiting, gaslighting, and proximity manipulation tactics used by toxic personalities. A manipulator can only control you if they can predict and exploit your reactions. If they know that a certain comment will make you angry or a certain posture will make you step back, they possess a remote control for your behavior. But when you anchor yourself in absolute physical stillness and vocal deliberation, you smash that remote control into pieces. You become a completely unpredictable, unyielding anomaly that their manipulation programs cannot process. As you move through the world from this day forward, view every corridor, every doorway, every meeting room, and every conversation not as a casual social space, but as a dynamic arena of spatial and psychological politics. Stop trading your long-term authority for short-term comfort. The next time you see an aggressive figure walking toward you in a tight space, do not yield an inch of your path. Do not soften your tone. Do not shrink your frame. Stand tall in your structural alignment, anchor your gaze on the destination behind them, and force the world to adapt to your presence. You are no longer a passive participant weaving through the margins of other people's lives. You are the immovable center around which the rest of the environment must flow.